Today is Monday, October 13th, 1980. I'm living in New England. The day has begun beautifully. The morning air is crisp. The fall colors are vibrant with red and gold leaves framing a royal blue sky. The whole scene looks like it fell off a calendar. My wife, Pam, and I barely have time to notice, though, because we're rushing out the front door of our apartment, suitcase in hand. Pam is 9 months pregnant and started having contractions before sunrise. We're on the way to the hospital to have our first baby. Today is going to be a birthday party. Check-in at the hospital goes smoothly. Before just a few minutes, Pam is being wheeled down the hallway to a delivery room. I'm walking behind wearing paper blue scrubs, a goofy grin, carrying my camera. I feel like a kid eager to have a chance to open the world's best Christmas present. The doctor arrives. Everyone is still cheerful and chatty. Even when his initial exam shows that the baby is breech, no one seems too alarmed. But then the doctor's back stiffens. "We have spina bifida here," he says. Spina bifida? I had never heard the term. It will take me days to learn how to pronounce it. I look down at the baby, a boy I see. I do notice there's a quarter-sized patch of skin, dark brown, near the base of his spine. To me, it looks just like a birthmark. How can that be a problem? Come on, everybody, let's get back to happy. That's not going to happen. I look down at the baby. We're going to have a boy. But I realize he hasn't even taken a breath. His 6-pound, 12-ounce body is turning a bluish gray. We're going to name him Matthew, gift of God. A nurse rushes over, picks him up, rushes him over to a small, brightly lit table. The second nurse runs over with a green rubber mask, puts it over his face, and begins to give him CPR. At that point, Matthew does take his first gasp of air. But we don't hear a loud, healthy cry like we had wanted to hear. What we hear is a weak, clogged gurgle. I set down my camera. The room is suddenly crawling with nurses. One comes up to me, and in a whisper, she asks me, "Mr. Harris, do you want me to get a priest?" Well, at first, her question puzzles me, and then it stings like a slap across the face. Apparently, they think this is all going to be over very quickly. If it was happy I wanted, another nurse did catch my eye because I could see through her mask she was smiling, beaming almost. Something in this crisis unfolding in front of us was energizing her. What could that be? She's going to tell us. "What a coincidence," she says to no one in particular. "I'm taking a grad class on spina bifida." I look at her, confused and angry, and just decide to ignore her. The doctor walks up to me. "Mr. Harris, your son is going to need emergency surgery at a second hospital. These next 24 hours will be critical." Within moments, nurses are preparing to get Matthew into an ambulance to get to that next hospital. Pam, who's wide-eyed and crying at this point, is going to be taken to a recovery room. I find myself standing in a hallway alone. I don't know which way to go. And suddenly up walks Nurse Smiley. Only this time she's carrying a big, thick book. "You remember that class I told you about, the one I'm taking on spina bifida?" she asked me almost casually. "Well, this is our textbook. I thought you might like to read it." A textbook on spina bifida? Are you kidding me? No, I don't want to read it. What I feel like doing is throwing it at her. Sensing my coldness, she finally stops smiling and walks away. This birthday party is officially become a train wreck. I want to think with you today about those fathers. I am one, twice actually. Matthew was born with spina bifida and many other complications. He spent the first year of his life in intensive care. My little boy was a fighter, though, and he had a smile that could melt the heart of every nurse he ever met. He battled a lifetime of physical and mental disabilities before he passed away 5 years ago, just a few days shy of his 40th birthday. I miss him every day. His brother Andrew was born in 1988 and received a diagnosis of cerebral palsy. Later we learned that both of my sons had inherited a rare and incurable genetic condition called Pelizaeus-Merzbacher disease. Their mother would pass away from it in 2012. Today, Andrew lives in a medical group home near Minneapolis. I love my boys deeply. Being their father has been the great privilege of my life. But it's been a hard road and a long road, one that I'm still walking. One day I asked Andrew, "How are you?" He said, "I'm perpendicular." Well, that describes me too. I'm perpendicular most days. Why talk about these dads? We live in a unique parenting world. Some of that has to do with the way that we're wired. Dads are supposed to be the protectors, the fixers of their kids. When we can't do that, and with our kids that's usually the case, it presents challenges, unexpected challenges. Here are two main ones. The first is a flood of feelings. The day that Matthew was born, and on the day that Andrew received a diagnosis, the first feelings were actually no feelings. My brain went numb. I was in a mental fog. I walked out that morning to my car to drive to the hospital where Matthew would have surgery. I couldn't quite remember how to put the keys into the ignition. I realize now I was in an emotional shock, but that didn't last long. As I drove out of the parking lot, I had to stop within a couple of blocks for a group of elementary school kids who were walking across to a playground. A little girl with frizzy red hair and big freckles wandered from her group and approached my bumper and gave me a big smile. I tried to smile back, but realized I was crying. I grabbed for my sunglasses and put them on and hurriedly drove off, hoping that she hadn't seen me. Well, why the tears? I was moving really from shock to feeling a really deep sadness. There was something about watching those kids in that crosswalk, of seeing normal kids, that made me realize for the very first time that my little boy, if he lived, would not be normal. Our dream of a healthy child had died. Now, new dreams eventually appear. But in those moments, for the first time, I was coming to grips with a grief that never goes away. Shock, sadness, and grief. Anger, too. Dads like me often feel angry. I think it's back to that wiring thing. We want to fix our kids. We want to be able to protect them and keep them safe from any harm that might be coming to them. When we can't do that, we get frustrated and we get angry. Joan Didion, in her book, The Year of Magical Thinking, talks about a time that her daughter was seriously ill and ended up in a hospital. Joan's husband, the girl's father, one afternoon got very angry with the doctor. That shouldn't surprise us, Didion writes. It is not normal for a father to see his child in need outside of his control. Anger looks different on different dads. Some get quiet. They say that anger turned inward can actually become depression. But some dads get very loud. They're like volcanoes that have eruptions. I've had a few of those. My biggest was in a hospital emergency room on a Sunday afternoon. Matthew had been running a high fever and was having difficulty breathing. They admitted him and right away put us into a private room. The doctor will be right here, the nurse told me, and then she left. We waited and waited. No doctor. I walked out to the desk and asked her about when he would be coming in. She said, "Thanks for your patience, but he'll be right there." I went back to the room and we waited and we waited. No doctor. Matthew was having more difficulty. His blood pressure was rising. So was mine. Still no doctor. And now the alarms started to ring in the different machines in his room. I was stressed. I was worried. I was also getting very angry. And I was getting philosophical. If these alarms are not getting anybody's attention, I thought, then why are they here? They're useless. What do you do with a useless alarm? You might as well get rid of it. So systematically, I started to walk around Matthew's room and pull out the plugs of every alarm in that room. That got attention. Here comes a nurse, and she is angry. Here comes a doctor, and he is angry. I'm angry. Everybody's angry. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes that needs to happen. A flood of feelings is one challenge that dads like me face. Shock, sadness, grief, anger. The second one is dealing with a lot of people. Parents like me who have a child with disabilities, whether that begins at their birth or later in life through illness or accident, will watch a parade of people march through their family's life. It starts with doctors and nurses, therapists. They're followed closely by specialists, by social workers, teachers, paraprofessionals, county caseworkers, case managers, group home staff, a whole parade of people. All of the marchers in that parade are important. Some are priceless. A few are really annoying. A handful are extraordinary. Sometimes you wish they would just all go away. But then you realize how important they are to your child's care, how important they are to you, and you wish that they would never leave. It becomes a strange and exhausting dance. Dads like me face challenges. A flood of feelings, a difficult parade. All of those have an impact on every part of our lives. Our physical health, our mental health, our jobs and careers, our finances, our relationships, our marriages. Statistics show that parents raising a child with disabilities have higher divorce rates. Sadly, we walked that road. Some dads get so overwhelmed that they walk away from everything. Why am I sharing all of this today? I don't want people to feel sorry for me or to feel sorry for dads like me. I do hope that there will be more awareness of us and that there will be more support given to them. That will certainly help that dad. More important, ultimately, this is about the child. A supported dad is a stronger dad. A stronger dad is a better dad. Our kids are going to need all kinds of people if they're going to reach the full potential of their lives. No one is more important in all of that than a strong dad. Do you know dads like me already? Perhaps as you're listening today, familiar faces have flashed in your mind. A brother, a cousin, a friend, a neighbor, a coworker. Be aware of them. Ask yourself, how can I support them? Now that may sound scary. You may think, I have no idea what I can do to help. I have no idea what I would even say to them. You may end up saying nothing at all. Let's broaden this out. Dads like me are caregivers. We all know caregivers. Maybe you are a caregiver. There are 65 million caregivers in the United States today. People who are taking care of siblings, spouses, elderly parents, disabled children. For many of them, it is a long and hard journey. Did you know that 70% of caregivers over the age of 70 will pass away before the person that they're caring for? Caregivers need care. They need support. They need simple words of kindness. They need acts that will encourage them. Small acts of kindness and simple words of support can make a difference. Here's how you can help caregivers like me. Keep it brief. Ask simple questions. How is your child? How are you? Make eye contact. Listen. It takes courage to do that, but know that reaching out, even in small, simple ways, can be a wonderful support to that dad and to that child. The first weeks, months even, after Matthew was born, I remember as a very isolating and awkward time for me. I didn't feel like talking much. But there were a few people who did have the courage to reach out to me. I remember a man from Cape Cod called me. I didn't know who he was. I don't know how he got my number. But he called and very briefly just said, I'm a dad who also has a son with spina bifida. It can get tough, but it will get better. So hang in there. My cousin John, who I hadn't talked to in more than 20 years, called me from the West Coast to say that they were thinking of us. Simple acts of kindness, simple words can make a difference. Sometimes you don't even need words. A few months after Matthew was born, he's still in the hospital. I'm back at work, a young pastor in my first church, struggling to be honest. One day, sitting in my office, the phone rings. It's Howard, a man from our congregation. Howard is in his 70s, tall, wavy gray hair, quiet man, friendly. He'd grown up in the South. Howard reminds me of Andy Griffith in his Matlock days. Can I buy you a cup of coffee? He asked me. I don't know Howard very well. I really don't want to have a cup of coffee with him. I'd rather sit alone in my office. But I say yes. At the restaurant, Howard is even more quiet than I remember. Nervously, I try to fill in the gaps of our conversation. At one point, he does say, "Steve, I hope that things go well for your son." After a few more awkward pauses, we finish our coffee. I stand up to leave. I reach out to shake his hand, to thank Howard. But instead, Howard pulls me towards him and gives me a big hug. A big, long, warm, bear hug. That was 45 years ago. I can still feel Howard's hug today. It made me feel seen. It made me feel supported. It made me feel strong. I began today by telling you about Nurse Smiley and her big, thick book. I'm actually thankful for her because she inspired me. I can tell you today about a second book, Dads Like Us, a survival guide for fathers raising a child with disabilities. It took me 40 years, but I wrote this book. I was so ill-prepared on that October day for all the challenges that lay ahead for me. I'm not alone in that. A recent survey of fathers who had spent time in intensive care with their child, more than 50% of them said that they had not received the support or the information that they needed. So I wrote this book to help dads, to be a brief, practical conversation between dads like me, talking about those key areas, things like how to face all those feelings, how to navigate that parade, how to be healthy caregivers, how to be good advocates and effective advocates for our kids. And then, most personally and painfully, how do we face the moments of letting go and saying goodbye? I wrote this book for dads. I also think it can be useful for other people, for doctors and nurses, social workers and teachers, chaplains, anyone who cares about and who is working with these families and these dads and these kids. I hope this book finds its way into the hand of everyone who needs it. Maybe you can help me with that. Thank you, and God bless you.